Life is really difficult here. Decide that I'm not going to be a victim of these kinds of societal pressures. Like, you don't have to do some of the things you're doing. Your child does not have to be in a cram school at 5 and 6 years old. If you can resist them, this is a really amazing culture.
So you guys came to Korea quite often. Like, how many times have you come to Korea?
Man, maybe 10 times.
10 times.
For me.
In a very short period of time.
Last year it was 4 times, and the year before 4 times. This year probably 4 times. It's a long trip. It's such a long trip.
But Sam makes it like it's not. He's like, no, I think I'm not going to be home in June because I'm going to go to Korea. I'm like, for what, Sam? We're going in May. He's like, oh, there's a thing I want to do. I'm like,
you're going back in June. You're going to go back in September or October and think like, yeah, well.
So it's kind of like around the block for Sam.
You know, it's very strange. Wait, walk into the Kyobo bookstore and to see it on the shelf.
Did you see it?
Yeah, yesterday I did. It was number 4. I looked up and I said, oh my God. I felt really moved.
How do you feel? Because you've been such a part of it.
I mean, I was so interested because I wanted to see like how Koreans view it.
Well, your mother read it.
My mother read it, and my mother's keep focusing on like what she should be doing, what Sam's reacting to, some of Koreans' culture, and
Do I want to know how it is to work with him from your point of view? Yes. But first, maybe you could just say how this came to be.
Have wanted to write a book, but when when the Bookman group reached out, they had such an interesting proposal. For some reason, I knew immediately I was going to say yes. But I didn't say yes. I let it sit in my inbox for 3 weeks.
3 weeks?
I didn't trust myself. And I said, no, I have to wait and see. And then 3 weeks later, I finally said, yeah, listen, you're going to do this. So I sent the proposal. Because every time I sat down to write, I wanted to go play golf. And then I had that moment of saying, oh my God, I need a Korean. I need someone to interview me.
What made you say it has to be a Korean person?
Because the book is written for a Korean audience. And I needed a Korean be able to ask the kinds of questions that would be interesting for a Korean audience.
Right.
First and only person was Suman.
What about you? Like, what makes you interested or made you interested?
Sam told me like he was struggling, right? For Koreans it is. I need your help. And that word seems to be so big to me because I feel like Sam is one of my best friends. Even though we have an age difference, I really wanted to help him. That's my genuine thought. I need to help him because I got so much inspiration from Sam that helping him out would be a changing moment for myself as well.
In what way change?
Sometimes for Koreans, it is really difficult to say ideas freely. But with Sam always says your idea is really nice. Get for more. Just speak it out more. And that really helped me change as well. And want to find and do something else and everything.
Your relationships, like I'm always...
Wait, I'm just...
Oh,
is it
yeah.
a culture thing? One of the
Korean
things we've
culture.
learned, but not very well.
Since we are eating, not point. And you know, I always like to have something in my hand. So I'm always a pen or something, my beads. So I'm always, it works well for me. So the way we conceptualized the book, I did with the editor, is around certain themes. Curiosity, perseverance, dealing with biases, resource management, we called it.
Even though you lecture, you don't tell people how to live.
Yeah, I don't tell anybody how to live their lives. I'm a person who's been trying to figure out how to live a really, really good life since I was 20 years old. How to live a thoughtful life, a good life. And I have discovered so many things that have worked and don't work. And I've been around long enough that I have enough students that I had, 40 years, and I can say like, yeah, you did. I was right, you did. You really were. I knew you were always gonna find your sweet spot. So I had an idea in my mind that I've been trying to answer this question, what is a sweet spot? But once I saw it on paper,
Once it was proposed to you.
proposed to me, I said, that's the thing I've been wanting to talk about. Yeah.
So it opened something up in you that's been there.
It opened something, yep. Once I discovered how amazing life was, I was in my early 20s. I traveled abroad for the first time. I was living in Spain. Then I traveled Europe, and I was discovering life at the university. You know, the whole world was there waiting for me. I want to try to live the best possible life that I can. I get one shot, and I want to do it. So I'm trying different things out, and I've worked so hard to figure it out. You know, I'm reading philosophers and psychologists, and I fell in love with this person who took me on an inner journey, and I knew that was going to make me a better human being. Maybe like 10 years, I've struggled a little bit because I thought, my God, I should have the answer by now. You know what I mean? I should have figured everything out.
You should know how to do it.
I should know how to do it. Like, come on, man. Like, I don't have much time left. Like, come on, get it right. But the sweet spot proposal has been magic to me because I realized it's all about balance. And I realized that I actually have been living in balance. And then so you come out of balance and then you go into a new balance. Struggle a little bit and then you find a new balance in that struggle. And it's just an endless process of rebalancing in a way that you don't even feel the rebalancing. It's just happening naturally. And why a Korean audience? Because Koreans care. You know what I mean? Koreans are really struggling to figure themselves out. And so are Americans. I mean, look, so are people all over the world, right? But it's different in Korea.
You intersected with a culture at a moment in history. There is a specific kind of, I don't know if it's called soul searching, I don't know what you would say.
Meet what I have to share, yep, and that would be interesting in what I have to say. An American audience, I wouldn't feel like they would be interested.
Two of you could talk about, is it tea or water?
It's water.
No, I can hold it. I love this holding like this, my hand underneath waves of...
Okay, thank you.
You got it for Rory.
There's just something really genteel about this Korean way. To take things with two hands.
Korean people are different from each other, and there's all kinds of categories of people, and that's obvious that there's a spectrum of people here. There is something where people tend to look like each other or share some ideas about the history and the future of Korea, which is not true in the US, and it's less true than ever now. So it's interesting to think about the two of you writing this in that context, right? Because this is a really different context than where we live.
Writing the book, talking through things, I was referring to Lori, how the questions that Suman came up with were just so uniquely oriented. They allow me to say things about, or to a Korean audience that, let's say, had you asked the questions or somebody else from another culture, I never could have done that.
I was asking a question about like curiosity. Like, why is it so important to have curiosity at the point when we have goals, like when we have a certain path we want to go? Sam was saying about having curiosity. That's a way to find your way of life and see yourself. I was so moved by him saying that these days, especially Koreans, they just don't ask questions to themselves. People just don't know who they are and just live their life. And that made me think so much to myself and ask so many Koreans. Do you guys ever ask questions to yourself, really?
What did you hear?
And they said, not really. So when they just write journals or they just write what I did today, that's the only part, not what they felt.
Yeah.
People would want to hear that when they want to level up.
So the group that wants to
Level up. But not in like just going to higher universities,
Right.
but in terms of their mind, enriching their mind.
So where were there times, if you can remember, where, push it in a different direction?
There were times that, oh, that's the word that Koreans need to hear. Typically about the partnership, like how we marry. For me, this time of the season, so many couples marry. We always ask like, what's his job? Or how's his background? But for Sam was saying, you need to find the person that you could talk to like every day about everything. That's like what partners matter. Don't think about the things that the person can do to you, think about the things that you could do to that person. And that was so eye-opening.
Koreans are going to, really focused on what's the status of our partner and what's their education, how much do they make, and we want to have someone a little bit above us. Each person does something, right? Because I understand Korean culture and I understand why that is the case, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to judge that negatively. Well, let me just tell you about my relationship with Lori. Telling about our relationship, it's such a love story. But it's not just a love story. I mean, we're an intellectual powerhouse, right? You're the smartest person I know, right? Like Lori is the one who taught me sociology, the core idea of sociology, right? After I had taught, oh my God.
After he had taught me.
After I taught her, because she was a student of mine, a long time. We were both very young.
Yes, talking about the meeting of the cultures, right? So you can know something about Korean culture. There's always places where, from a different culture, your mindset is different, right?
Yeah,
so you're not, like for me, it's really shocking that when you say that in Korean marriages, you're thinking more of like status, education, and things like that. There's plenty of people in the US who also would be thinking that.
For sure.
Shocking for me because that's just not how I've ever thought. And then people around me, I don't think have thought that way either. There's many times I say to myself, why didn't I think about who this guy was?
I married a rich guy.
How did my parents just like, woohoo, just let me on?
Like Lori's working class, I'm working class.
Yeah.
Like, why didn't I go out find a rich girlfriend?
Or why didn't I I came to his house in Ohio and I was like, wow, this is so much like my house. And that should have clued me in that we weren't, I wasn't going up, But the point is.
You did not level up.
But anyway, so it's just interesting when even just that simple thing where you're like, oh, we're more thinking of status and goals and this and that. I'm like, wow.
Thank you.
Keep going, Dr. Mulvey.
I think I'm just making the point that the differences in culture are subtle, right? It can be like, oh, this is what we do traditionally, or this is the kind of food that we eat, and that's different. Those are the obvious things, and you can figure those out. But I think like the deep beliefs that we have or assumptions that we have that are not obvious, you can only find that out when you stumble into it.
Exactly.
Right?
And talking to you guys.
Yeah. And when you have somebody that can go across the cultures, right?
And like even going back to the marriage thing, since I'm like the age when usually Koreans get married, I asked Sam that if I change like my job, if I start something new, I might be able to get married a little late. Would that be okay? If I can't get a house right now, would that be okay? And Sam said, I mean, the society made that. Like Korea, the house is so expensive. It's so hard to start a life as a couple. It was so relieving that he said that.
Even an outsider sees that.
No, especially an outsider.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking when you said that. It definitely takes someone whose eyes are not shaped by the culture to see the culture, that's one thing that drew me to Sam, is that the culture of his family and therefore your world is so different than mine. And so he would say things to me, never even thought about that before, because it was coming from a more objective place, maybe you would say, because you're not in the culture, right? So your eyes are more clear.
I thought Sam would have been in a house, not working class, but
Like a really nice
house. Even went like straight through like really famous university, but he wasn't. He was a painter, and that was like so eye-opening to me.
Oh my God.
It's always a surprise. The additional
How many foods?
yes.
I should do this. Thing is, it's not this either. It's this.
This?
It's flat.
Do parents tell you to say to make sure you cover your mouth or something?
Like not to show anything in your mouth. And we tend to do this very natural. For Koreans, it's quite tough living in Korea, and it's really hard to see like the beauty side of why Koreans should be still living in Korea. I want to hear you guys' opinion.
I question it. I look around and I question whether it's true or not. Life is really difficult here. It's stressful, there's a lot of pressure to move up, to do different things, but so much of those pressures you can deal with. You just have to decide that I'm not going to be a victim of these kinds of societal pressures that are unnecessary, exorbitant, we say in English. They're too much. The sweet spot and being able to figure out how to resist those and still live within Korean culture and still live a really good life. Like, you don't have to do some of the things you're doing. Your child does not have to be in a cram school at 5 and 6 years old. Like, they don't. But the thing that I say a lot is like, listen, you gotta understand that there are all these pressures, but if you can resist them, this is a really amazing culture and a really cool place. Just this Koreanness, really special, especially at this point in history.
You and I have made a lot of decisions along the way that are very counter to our culture, right? So,
What do you mean by counter?
for example, we went to universities and we got PhDs, and we were supposed to go on a tenure track and, you know, prove ourselves again and get a certain position and become full professors and make a certain amount of money. We did none of that.
Like a track that everybody would go.
5 to 7 years, proving yourself, jumping through hoops, working really,
Basically
really
getting
hard.
another doctorate is how it is.
Exactly. And then your colleagues say like, okay, you're good enough. We'll let you have a job for life among us.
Which is very prestigious, and which it gives you a lot of status, right? So if I'm gonna tell you something and I have tenure, I am much more legitimate as a person, as opposed to people like us who we got our PhDs and we said, that's it. We're not doing that. We are not jumping through hoops. We're not killing ourselves. We did it once, we're not doing it again.
Why? Why?
Because we knew it wasn't healthy. It wasn't good for me. We had different moments of decision making, but I said, I jumped through all the hoops already. I am no longer proving myself to anyone. It's done. I've done it. And so that was it. That was why I did that.
There's something else though. Because we discovered one another, because we weren't leveling up, we discovered that Lori can help me be the kind of person who I want to be, and I can help her. But what it means is we can't chase after something that's really not in our control. We can go after something that's in our control.
I think we just realized how much we appreciated time together. We had many things we came to, but one of the things we also came to was no one can pay me enough or us enough to give away our time. Like, that's all we have. However many millions of dollars is not going to replace losing the time with each other or anybody else, you know. But it was here that we first realized that, so.
Why were we gonna go after 10? Why are we gonna do these things? They don't matter.
And therefore, why would, we also realized really early that buying a house is like putting yourself in prison. Even though we have a house.
Really?
Yeah, because it's so much work. And my brother calls it a money pit, right? Which is like, so you're always spending money. You're not saving money.
But we bought a house that was way below our needs. Like, we could have bought a much more expensive house, and then once we started making more money, we could have bought another house. Big house,
in
big
debt,
beautiful house,
in
but
debt.
we'd be in debt. We'd have to go to work. We'd have to keep working. But instead we got a small house, we paid it off, and we have more time for ourselves.
No matter where you are, life is always throwing curveballs, we say, and meaning you're always going to have to keep finding the sweet spot, right? Because when you're young, but when you're early in your career and the decisions about your life, there's a lot of stress and struggle around that. Then you get to other parts of your life and it's like kids, or taking care of your parents, or how do you raise good people in the world, or what do you do when you start to see the end of your life coming, and how do you live with that? These are all things that take you off balance, that you have to keep resetting.
So Koreans are going to read this sweet spot, right? Oh my God, I was a late bloomer, and here's why that was such a good thing, and here's how you don't have to worry about your own kids. Just relax, it's all good. They listen to this, right? But what they don't understand is how much we gave up, how much we did not follow our culture. Every moment we resisted. We didn't buy things, we didn't try to look a certain way, we didn't try nothing. We just decided that the most important thing is personal growth, understanding ourselves, and being in love, and growing our minds.
And contributing.
You know? Contributing, like it's never good enough. We come to an explanation and one of us says, wait, hang on. Like right now with Donald Trump. It's like, this guy is a lunatic, and then one of us will be like, wait, hang on. What are we missing? You got 50 million people or 100 million love this guy, whatever it is. It's like, what are we missing? Because 100 million people aren't wrong, you know what I mean? Well, maybe they are, but they're probably not, right? So then we stop. And so we're always leveling up intellectually and emotionally and so on. We're trying to get better. We're improving one another. We're doing this constantly. And it got to a really cool life. And I think that I would say that. Would you agree with that?
I can say that we have really tried to live a good life, which I don't even know what that means, right? But it's somehow to live in alignment with who we are and what we've been given. I'm aware all the time, and I'm especially aware of it right now at this point in my life and my work, the things that I gave up, and therefore I don't have certain kinds of credibility that other people might have, and so I'm very aware of, that's because you chose this over that. And
You chose to not have status.
Yeah.
Do you guys never regret?
I feel like I have regrets. Not regrets in terms of what I'm telling you about right now, but it's a point in my life where I am reflecting on, and it's like you can only live one life, right? So I can see the things that came to me and the things that didn't come to me, and more than anything, it's just a regret that it goes so fast, and you just can't hold on to it.
Do you never regret that you made choices like not the same path that everybody does?
I don't regret that, by the way.
No.
That part I do not regret.
Like having a house or having a lot of money, buying a car, a thing that we feel very relieved and that shows ourselves. It seems like that. Is there a difference in how Koreans view it and people in the US or Westerns view it differently?
Many Americans want the luxury brands, but people can't afford it. The people who can't afford it mostly accept that they can't afford it. But here's the thing. Many people get caught in the trap of buying a house that's beyond what they can afford. They want to show the rest of the world that they're in a really big, beautiful house. Seoul is like San Francisco or New York, meaning that even to buy a nice apartment in San Francisco or New York just costs a lot of money. And so the average person, if you have just an average job, it's gonna be really very difficult for you to do that. Like if you were a police officer, let's say, and then your spouse works as a manager at a supermarket, and so you got these two salaries, you're never gonna buy a nice apartment in the center of Seoul. Maybe a small tiny one in an old building, okay, you could do that. But a nice apartment, a big apartment, no. Well, you're never gonna do that in San Francisco or New York. But many people would still try, and they would feel bad that they can't do that.
And there's a lot of people leaving those cities
Because
of that. So going back to your question, Koreans, are you meaning like really, no matter where they are in the class structure, they want the house, the brands, the good education, etc.?
Because we grow with like people thinking as, if I grow up, I want to go to the university in Seoul. If I grow up, I want certain amount of salary, go to certain apartments, have kids and send them to
good school so they can go to a
and
good university.
they level up and everything.
Right.
That's all combined.
Okay, so there are two things, right? I think on one hand, Americans, we tend to be more of a practical culture on average. So it's a lot easier for us, or more faster for us, to realize at a younger age that, hey, we're never going to do that, so just accept. And then people can just quickly enjoy. I think we're more likely to be able to not live with the pressures over us. Right? But at the same time, there's that moment when each person has to decide. And so Lori and I, there were several neighborhoods where we could have bought a house in our small town. The really nice neighborhood where all the people, the professors with tenure live, the ones with status and tenure. And we said, what do we have to give up to live there?
You guys talk about that
Totally.
all the time?
Yeah, all the time. We could afford, actually. It was only in relatively recent years where we started to make a little more money. And then we said like, oh, we could buy a little bigger house. But then we said, yeah, but we'll be locked into it. Like, we're not doing that.
It was always, we have to keep working.
Yeah, then we have to keep working, and then we won't have time to be at the sweet spot. So we said no, and so we resist that, and that's the intellect, that's the growth, where we grew enough to say, no, don't do that.
Remember we bought the house that we only expected to be there for a year or two, and we've been there ever since. The reason that we came to for purchasing that house was because we wanted to preserve the grad student lifestyle.
Yeah.
Walked everywhere. We're 1 mile from campus, so we can walk back and forth to campus. And we were like, that is so valuable to us. Like, we don't want to get in a car. We don't want to have to even own a car. So it was like all these things that we were like, just support well-being, enjoyment.
Yeah. And a car is expensive.
Yeah.
So we said, we just recently bought a Hyundai Santa Fe. We added up all the cars that we've ever owned from when she was 16 and I was 16, and we added up the cost of all of the cars that we've ever owned, including together. And I think the total cost we came to was like $25,000. $25,000. That's how much we paid for a car in 40 years.
Yeah. Wow.
40 years. Because they were all old used cars.
Old used cars.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was good enough. Because, like, why are we going to waste money on a car?
Yeah.
So we bought a Santa Fe, and the Santa Fe was twice as much as anything we've ever, of all the other cars put together. And now, of course, we're in the Santa Fe, and we're going, oh, this is really nice. Why didn't we do this sooner?
This is mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. This is a real question.
Yeah.
Like, I actually really want to know, what's it like working with him?
Really respect Lori for living with Sam because he has popping ideas. Every second, I have an idea. Do you want to do it? I said, okay. And it really piled up. And I told him, maybe we should think again. The good part about Sam is he just believes in me and says, okay, I think we should not do that.
Right. Yeah, no, that is true. If you push back or whatever, he will respond to that.
Mm-hmm.
But I made a shirt for him that says, I have an idea. Because he says it all the time.
Yeah.
And then it's like, Sam, I know you have an idea, but we have enough ideas. And then he's like, oh, my idea.
But I wanted to add one more thing. Sometimes when we're working in just Korea, it's really hard to get good feedback. Like whenever you're good, there's no one who's telling you that you're good. But Sam, every interview, you had a great question. I did it because of you. That was so much relieving for me and made myself confident.
Yeah. And the questions got better.
He's doing it again.
By the end, they were so good. I thought, like, oh my God, these are the best questions ever. Oh my God. Yeah, it was so much fun to do it, to answer them.